What's up, everyone? My name is Frederick White, and this is Black Road Podcast. And if you watched Black Road Podcast before, then you know we have a lively intergenerational dialogue that highlights the opinions, perspectives, and the stories of the Black African descent community. Our purpose is to relentlessly pursue equity and justice for all. And our mission is threefold: to be an advocate for fairness and equity, to be an accelerator of justice system transformation, and to be an accomplice to credible social justice influencers and the communities they serve. Today we have Steve Primas. Hey Steve, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. How are you today?
I'm blessed, sir. You mind going ahead and telling us a little bit about yourself, Steve?
So my name is Steve Primas. I'm a relationship coach, marriage coach, parent coach. My focus is children, youth, and families is what I focus on. And the goal is always to make sure that families are getting better. And so that's my primary focus of what I do.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing, Steve. So we're gonna get into some questions, and I hope you're ready to get deep, man. All right.
Let's go.
Yes, sir. So our first question we have is, what inspired you to become an advocate for young Black fathers?
You know, again, thinking about when I was a young Black father, being a single parent, raising my daughter, um, there wasn't too much out there of, a lot of it was trial and error. Gratefully, I had a great stepdad who was a great example for me. But as I navigated the process and going through the legal process of, being in my daughter's life and ultimately getting custody, there was all kind of barriers and hurdles that I had to go over. And so that really, my experience, and it's fast forwarding, I was out volunteering, coaching, and doing things like that. And I remember there
Mm,
were many times that I would take kids home after practice and I'd see two vehicles parked in the driveway. And I'm thinking, like, what is this kid thinking that his parents didn't take the time out to come get me? Then my coach had to bring me home. And that inspired me to go on to say, I got to do more because, we're doing all this work with the kids, but if somebody's not also working with the parents, we may be sending them back home to some broken environments. And so that's kind of what led me. And that's what kind of inspired me to really get into this work of really helping families be better.
that's amazing, man. That's amazing. And how much, like you spoke on your stepdad a little bit, how much of an impact was he in your life?
Man, he was a huge impact in my life. I mean, there is no telling where I'd be if it wasn't for him, because I was able to see him be a husband. I was able to see him be a father, and here he stepped in and raised three kids that weren't his. And that always inspired me. That alone, right? My mother was an inspiration to me as well, because I remember, that the small amount of time where she was a single parent, she worked three jobs at a time and had us in the back of the station wagon delivering Avon and things like that. And I saw those two images of what she did. And then he came in and stepped in to raise three kids that weren't his. And I never looked up to like Michael Jordan or any athlete or entertainer. Those were my heroes. And so from that, I always had the inspiration that there is nothing that's going to stop me from being a dad if I ever change.
Oh man, that's amazing. The selling Avon for me is hilarious because my granny used to have me out there knocking on them doors too. And we used to get way more
Absolutely.
no's.
Yeah.
We used to get way more no's than we got yeses. But when we got yeses, it was a good night. We
Right.
got yeses, it was a good night. That's amazing, man. What are some of the biggest challenges you find in single Black fathers today?
I mean, some of the biggest challenges is one, understanding and trying to navigate the court system, right? Because the court system is not all that easy to navigate when you don't know. And so you don't even know where to start oftentimes. And then two is as single fathers, as Black fathers, we always have the impression that the woman automatically gets custody of the kid. And now knowing what I know of going through the education and getting educated in all of this, I realized that that wasn't the case. But again, the lack of information, we don't have the information, so we don't even know that we have just as much right. But it's how do we navigate that process in the court system? Then in navigating the court system is also understanding how to present yourself as, um, because oftentimes our passion comes across to everyone else, the court system, judges, and everybody else as anger, right? And so learning how to maintain and present myself in a way that I don't come across as the angry black man that they
Mm.
often deem us as. Um, and then knowing the resources that are out there of like, and learning how to build yourself a village of how to build yourself a support system of being a father, right? Because even being a father, you can't do it alone. So you need the role models, you need the people who can influence you, because even in raising your kids, there are going to be times where, especially when your kids get to adolescent stage, you might be saying all the right things, but your child can't hear it from you, and therefore, you're going to need that village to be able to come along and speak the same things you're speaking for them to get it. Right. I remember when my daughter was in second grade, and I remember her coming home one day was like, she wasn't getting her math homework, and I was doing my best teacher impression. And I'm like, you got to borrow here, you got to carry the one, and she wasn't getting it. And she goes to school the next day and come home very excited. Daddy, look what my teacher showed me. And it was the exact same thing that I said. And so what I learned from that example is sometimes we have to learn how to put our kids in an environment where people are saying the same message. Right. And
Yes.
so from that, I learned to build my village so that my daughter had people who were saying the same message. It was just coming through and just watering over the seeds that I planted.
Man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I feel the same way with my sons, having them in that environment. That's gonna make them grow. You don't want to have an environment that has them complacent or, not wanting to express themselves or want the growth, So man,
Hmm.
right there with you on that. Really, really, that's
Hmm.
awesome, man. What resources or support system have you found most helpful amongst us Black fathers?
You said resources and support systems.
Mm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So oftentimes I see the best resource to me is mentorship, right? Like being able to have other fathers who've been there, other parents who've been there so you can learn from them. Also people to just speak into your life and just let you know that you can do it, right? Because sometimes it do get hard. Sometimes the tests are there. And so when you have a support system, um it 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 helps because it makes you feel like you're not alone. I remember when I went through the journey of, learning to navigate the court system and all of that stuff of just trying to be a dad. And, I remember following a parenting plan, and my daughter's mom went and served me with a restraining order, right? Like that's the first time I encountered the court system. And so if you can imagine as a young 22-year-old, that was daunting, right? Like, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to navigate that? Right? Going to an attorney and the amount that you have to pay is an enormous amount that in the moment you don't see the value of it. And so you're like, man, I can't do this. And so I had to take a step back. And luckily, again, I was determined that I'm going to be in my daughter's life. So we did the shared parenting thing for a little while. But, there was another opportunity. I was like, okay, I need to file another parenting plan. And that's what ultimately led me into getting custody of our daughter, is because I stayed the course, right? Like I was committed and I stayed the course. And so when the guardian ad litem came into the process, he was like, wow, this is a dad that's been there, is committed. He's working 3 jobs. He's always there for his daughter. And so he came to court and advocated for me in that process. But again, I think, looking back and working with all the families that I work with now, of having mentorship or having a support system say, man, you can do it. Here's the process. And here's ways to handle that. Here's ways to overcome that. And then two, how to stay encouraged as you go through the process, because again, there's going to be many roadblocks. And so having a huge support system, I'm a proponent of mentorship, right? Now, counseling is another area that I think is helpful because there are a lot of fathers who have childhood traumas themselves. And so again, if we don't understand and learn that we have the traumas, oftentimes we are going to pass those same traumas along to our kids. So we have to learn how to heal so we can help heal our kids and help them navigate through a healthy process.
That's the truth. That is very true. And us as black men, I feel like that's the first thing is healing. I had to
Mhm.
realize I had to realize like we don't know how much we carry from our parents. Right? We think it's just us, but no, it's stuff that is, compiled on top of each other that now we kind of have to shake before we, give it to the next generation. So commend you on that healing,
And
that
even and even
healing.
with th- and and even with that is our parents were often doing the best they knew how, right? They
Yes,
they were doing the best with what they had. Um, and I have to say, our parents did. And when you look back at generations, a lot of our parents were surviving. And so
man.
they were really just trying to figure it out. And then they were also dealing with their childhood traumas, right? That they never healed from because, again, in previous generations, it was kind of like just suck it up and get over it. And so a lot of our parents were raising us from a place of fear. And so in raising my daughter, I had to learn to make a shift from not raising her from a place of fear, but raising her from a place of you deserve to be here. You deserve the privileges. No, there is nothing you can't do. And so I learned how to shake that fear-based parenting and go into a thriving based parenting. Like, no, you deserve this. And everything that's out here is yours. And so,
Man,
there's nothing you can't do. And so I had the saying in my household, there's no such thing as can't. There's always a way around the can't.
there we go. There we go. I love that, man. Love and affirmations. That's how what I move. Love and affirmations. So I agree with
Yes.
that. I definitely
Yeah.
agree with that. I wanted to know, how do you envision the future of young black fathers in general, and what changes would you like to see?
Man, I envision a future of Black fathers is really like just seeing that it's possible. Um, and I'm starting to see more Black fathers who may even be single parents, right? Who are getting custody of their kids. And so that is beautiful to see that, to envision that this is a possibility. But what I also envision is just that mentality that, you know what, even if I didn't have my father in my home, if I didn't have my father in my life, I
Oh,
want to
you went
start
out
to
there for a
become the
second.
father that I wish I. So I had this conversation in the barber shop the other day that this barber said, you know what, I wish that I was like my son now, because my son he's got confidence, he's got everything right, he's got good grades, he was like, I wish I was him. And I said, you know what? I said, what that means is you became that father that you wish you had, right? You didn't grow up with your father in your life, but you envisioned what it would be like had you had a father. And so what you did is you dreamt and you manifested becoming the father that you wish you had. And that's what I believe that we have to do, right? Like, even if we didn't have a father figure, what are the things that we wish we were in our childhood, and we have to start to become that. And so I just envision, when I was raising my daughter, the mentality that I is that one day I understood that one day my daughter is going to look for a man like me to marry. And so therefore I have to evolve to become a better version of me because I wanted her to get the best version of me. So that
That's right.
means I have to continuously evolve, right? I have to continuously evolve to become better and better and better because I want her to see me as the norm. Don't want her to see like I'm a one off. Like, my father is the norm for what men should be in our life. And I say fathers with sons, right? Like, you have to become the man that you want to see your son eventually become. And so with that in mind, that's what I envision for fathers, of just being that role model that not only their kids see, but even their friends and the community. And because when that happens, guess what? Your kids are even inspired because other kids are coming to your kids saying, man, your dad, man, what we got from your dad was great. And
Hey,
so that's what I envision for fathers to become. Like we start to take back our communities and become that presence in our communities, in our kids' schools, in our kids' sporting events, all of those things that we are there as a support, that we are there as the village. And everybody looks to these fathers and say, wow, they're powerful.
man, that is amazing. I love that. I love that. Um, I agree with that. My son just started wrestling, and I notice I'm like the only parent that's like on the sideline, like, "Hey, go, get it. You know, you got it. Good job." You know, and everybody like looks at him like, like you don't tell your dad to be quiet. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, "No, I need all my son." He's like, "I need all that." But my dad just tell me I'm doing great. That's what I want. So, man, you're right,
Right.
right. Showing up. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. What do you feel support is most
Yeah.
needed for Black fathers just starting the transition into becoming into parenthood?
Again, I go back to that mentorship. I go back to that village and that support system. And thinking about the groups that we have. I tell you, it's powerful to see other men going through it. So again, that you feel like I'm not alone in this, but you have somebody that's saying, you know what, brother, we're gonna walk with you on this journey. When you go to court, we all go to court. When you're fighting for your child, we're all fighting. When you win, we all win. And to know that you have a band of brothers, that you have a support system that is rocking with you, that is standing 10 toes down and say, you know what, you're not going to face this alone. I think that is important. That is what's really needed. Just having that village. And again, because too many, I believe for so long, too many men felt like we had to do it alone. Right. So we did a lot of things in isolation and it can be overwhelming, but to know that, somebody else has been through that or somebody else is going through it right now, you don't feel alone. And now you feel like, you know what? I can do this. I can do this because I got this support system. I got these brothers behind me that are there with me. And I really believe, you know, having that access, having access to therapy, having access to counseling, being able to be told that it is all right to show your emotions. It is all right to cry. It is all right to say you're sorry in front of your kid. All these things are what we need, but if you don't see it, you don't know that it's possible. And so again, I think having a support system, having a mentor, I think every man should have mentors, that's there, that's helping them, showing them the way, showing them what's possible. Because what some of the things that I found in some fathers that I've worked with is I get the image that, a father to say, well, my father wasn't there. At least I'm doing better than him because I'm here. And that is great, right? But if you're there and you're cursing your kid out every day, yes, you're doing better than your father, but there's still more to go, right?
Mm,
There's still room to improve. And so, but until you're around those environments where people are giving you the sense that, you know what, you can grow to even this, you can grow even further than where you are. So that's where I believe the mentorship and the support system is so vital.
that's amazing. Yeah, and you're not lying at all. In that time of transition, did you ever feel like you wanted to stop or like there was no light at the end of the tunnel? And if you ever did, what were the methods that you used to get out of that funk?
Well, I will tell you for me, there was never a moment that I doubted myself because when I looked at that little chocolate girl that was mine, man, there was nothing. For me, there was nothing that could stop me because that for her, I understood I was her Superman. And that fueled me. I don't care. I could be having the worst day. When I would come home to see her say, "Hi, Daddy," it wiped all that away. And I would tell you that was if I could say that was my power pill when I think of like the game of Pac-Man, right? Pac-Man, you're going through all the dots. And what do you want to do when the ghosts are after you get to those? You want to get to those power pills. Because once
Yeah.
you get to those power pills, there's nothing that can stop you, right? And so my daughter was my power pill. And so again, she was my inspiration to keep going. So there was never a doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to be there. Yes, I had to learn to navigate the court system. I had to learn to navigate all of these other systems. But there was never a time because I was just so determined. And part of it too is, I remember when I was younger and I used to have friends that, they had kids and maybe they weren't in their kid's life for whatever reason, said, I'm not going to be there. Right. And so when
Yes.
I had my daughter, like I said, that just fueled me that no matter what, there was nothing that was going to stop me from being in my daughter's life. There was nothing that was going to stop me from being present, from being positive for my daughter. And so again, she was really my motivation because again, to see that chocolate girl, that was my heart. That was my everything. And so again, I didn't even look at it as a responsibility. I looked at it as a privilege. I get to raise her. Not that I have to, but I get to. And that perspective changed the whole thing for me. I was never that parent, right, that wanted my child to go and stay the night so I could have, some me time. No, I always wanted my child with me. Like that was like for me, she was definitely my influence. And I tell her to this day, I am a better man because of you. You helped me to become a better. And so even to this day, and I tell her, I said, I'm still grateful that I get to be here.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, I feel you on that. I love being around my son. He's my little broke best friend. I'm telling you. Any chance I get around my son is that's what I want, man. I want that vibe. And it's just the father son thing, man. I mean, I'm sure if I had a daughter, it would be a father daughter thing as well. But man, just to, him wanting to go play catch, him wanting to go. We got like this little pond outside, and they got so many like tadpoles and larvae in it. And he's like, let's go see how many tadpoles you count. Let's go see how many's in there. And he's disgusted by them. Like he won't touch them or nothing. But just the fact he just wants to see them and just, mess with them, it's just like, oh man, I love just that time. The simple things. It's what I feel like touches our hearts as fathers. And I thank you for being a great father, Steve. I really do.
And one of the things that I strive to do is I applaud great fathers when I see them out with their kids. I make sure that I recognize them because oftentimes we don't hear it,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And I make sure that anytime I see a man doing what he's supposed to do with his kids, mothers too, but just thinking about fathers, oftentimes they don't hear it. And so I always want to make sure that I recognize those fathers, man, brother, you're doing a great job, man. Your son is going to be better because of you. And sometimes just to hear that can be all the motivation you need, right? Like, I don't know what they may be going through. They may have had a
Exactly.
hard day, but to have somebody just come to you and be like, brother, you're doing amazing, right? And I think we need more of that as well.
I love that, man, because yes, I completely agree. And just letting them know you're doing a great job and to keep doing what you're doing, I feel like helps a man go from
Keep doing
blah to ha. So
it.
I commend you on that. That's awesome. My last question for you. I'm not even gonna say my last question because I feel like we've been coming up with so many questions on the spot, but we do have a time limit, and I wish I could interview you for hours more because, again, you mentored me through my whole situation. So again, to hear everything, to hear more in depth of everything is awesome. I appreciate you, man. My next question for you is: what strengths and contributions do single fathers bring to their families and communities that are often overlooked?
Oh man, Phew. I would say, what don't they bring? Right? Like they bring strength. They bring, just that hero effect. Right? When fathers are present, again, they're like the superhero. And again, the many years that I work with kids, I will tell you this: the many years that I've worked with kids, and I'll ask the kid, who all lives in your home? They'd be like, me and my mom and my siblings. Where's your dad at? Well, I haven't seen him in 5 years. Say, how do you feel about that? Well, I don't really care. But the fact that you just say you don't really care tells me you care. How do you feel? And when I ask that feeling word, oftentimes they start crying, right? You know why? Because they long for that relationship with their father. They want that superhero to look up to. Even kids that their dad isn't there, they still go and brag about their dad, right? Because again, every kid wants to identify with their father. Every girl wants that, the frame of understanding what love is through the father. And so what fathers bring to the community, man, is huge. Again, I believe we could change society with more fathers and father figures in the home, of being around kids, because every kid is looking for that. And so the power and the strength that a father has, right? Like even sometimes just the voice of a father can do a small and I won't say a command, but a small correction from a father can change the course of what a kid does. And not to say that moms can't, right? But the voice of a father brings a commanding presence sometimes, that sometimes mom be like, I can't get him to do whatever. And dad walks in and he'll say, kid just snap word. And so again, I also understand, just the presence of a father means the world, man. And so again, for communities, imagine this. Imagine, and so here's I work at a school. And so oftentimes, first day of school, what I try to do is I try to get a bunch of brothers to just show up, right? And just greet students as they walk in the door. I'm gonna tell you, just the presence, the visual of that alone, brings like safety, right? It brings a safety, it brings security, it brings all of that, and just the presence, just to see that, because you don't hear about it, right? It happens, but again, the media doesn't capture it. We don't talk about that, enough in our society. And so, man, I tell you, there's a book that I read. It's called Male versus Man. And the difference between a male is males are looking to be served, where men are looking to be a servant. And so when you think about fathers who matriculated to that point in their lives of, I want to be of service, not only to my household, but to my community, it's a game changer. And so again, I understand wherever I show up, I set the temperature, right? I set the temperature, not the atmosphere is controlling me, but I control the atmosphere just by my presence. And so imagine that fathers who are showing up, who are controlling the atmosphere just by their presence. And that's what I believe that, fathers would bring to a community.
Man, that set the temperature. You used to rap. I could tell you used to rap because that was a bar right there, Steve. That was a bar right there. You out here, hold up. You got your bag. Calm down, simmer down, Steve. Man,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
amazing, man. I love that we ended on that question because I feel it lets you go into your deep into your bag because man, that is true. It's about setting the tone so much. I feel like in this time and age, they got the matching energies. There's well, I'm gonna match
Mhm.
their energy. I'm gonna match their energy. Like you don't even know how much strength you have just by setting the tone of this is the energy. This is the
Right.
energy, and it doesn't
Right.
matter what energy you give me back. It's all love. It's all peace. So, regardless of what you throw at me, I'm a duck. It's gonna roll right off of me. So that's amazing to have that
Mhm.
right there. And I feel like to be so I feel like what we don't understand is meek. Being meek is not weak. You know, you know how much
Right.
power it is
Right.
to be meek and just have that contained. Like, oh my gosh, that's like this is amazing. That's amazing. So, man, you hit everything on the button,
And
Steve.
right.
No, go
And
ahead,
when
go
you
ahead.
speak about meekness, think about that, right? Meekness is a strength, because I
Yes.
want you to understand, the meekness, right? Just that you just talked about that. Imagine a car coming full speed, right? But being able to step on the brake and control it.
Man.
That's what I think about meekness, right? Like you're in
Man.
control of the strength, right? So that meekness is you are the strength for being, right? You're able to, you know, the strength that you have within you. You know the horsepower that you have within you. But when I can
Yes.
control that, that is the sign of strength. And so again, oftentimes, operating out of anger, operating out of those things, when we learn the emotional intelligence that we get to control the emotions that we have, man. So I often say my mind is my remote control. Nobody can change my channel unless I give them the remote. And so understanding that, I don't care what somebody can come and make life inconvenient for me, but guess what? I still get to control the emotion. And when they understand that they can't control the emotion, they have no power over me. And so again, that meekness is a strength.
That's real. That is real. Are you the secret member of Wu Tang? Are you? Is there something you are not telling us, Steve? Because oh my
Now,
goodness.
you- now, now, before my daughter, before my daughter, I did used to rap. My daughter, so yeah, so after I had my daughter is when life got serious, and I was like, unfortunately, the rapping is not putting enough money on the table right now.
There
So
you.
I have to go out here and focus on making a living. So I had to transition, to just being a dad, and hey, that dream that I had, hey, it's gonna have to evolve into something else. But and so I made it happen.
Oh man, I understand that. I at a time in the rap career as well. I put out an album and everything. It was the first album to go copper, and I knew then, I don't need to be doing this no more. Okay, you make an album that goes copper. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Uh, No, but thank you, Steve. I really appreciate you, man. Thank you for all your insight and all your knowledge. And us here at the IBJ, we thank you for just taking the time to be able to give us that.
Mm. Absolutely, man. And can I say that you're an amazing dad, man? And I love your energy. I love your passion for your kids. And I'm telling you, brother, you're changing generation with what you're doing right now. Just being a
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And thank you for being the shoulder to
absolutely.
vent on and to I really appreciate you, Steve. Really, really I do, man. So thank you again, tenfold.
Hey, I enjoy this time, brother.
Yes, sir. Again, thank you everyone who tuned in and watched this. I'm your host, Frederick White. This is the Black Road Podcast, and we'll see you next time.